Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the new weapon, the Epitaph Prime. And specifically, we are going over the priming build for it and the status damage build for it. So yesterday we went over the charged shot mode and we did a video on that. And it's just because the Epitaph Prime is effectively two different weapons. It has one mode that is a charged shot that doesn't have any AOE, and it's very crit heavy and really bad in status. And then it has the other mode, which is the quick shot, that is a lot of AOE, really bad crit, but really good status. So it's kind of opposite of each other. And so that's why we're doing two videos on the Epitaph. So the Epitaph Prime was suggested to us by commenter Finzo Tigro Hick 59, and that's why we're doing it today and yesterday. But I was going to do it regardless, just because it's a new weapon, so I wanted to get that done. We have the top commenter of the last video, Cancelas, and the first commenter of the last video, Silver44. All right, let's get into the Epitaph here. So it is a secondary little arm cannon. Kind of already said that yesterday, so we'll just go into the build here now. I still want to go over the unique things about the Epitaph, just for the people that weren't here yesterday. So the Epitaph is going to produce guaranteed cold procs on direct and radial hits. And it's going to produce guaranteed impact procs on direct hits. And that's true for both the charge shot and the AOE mode. Now let's go into specifics. The uncharged AOE mode, the one we're doing today, has innate blast on the radial attack of it, and it has a 10-meter base radius that we can kick out further with things like Prime Fulmination. The charged shot mode, like the railgun mode that we're not doing today, that we did yesterday, has an innate 2-meter punch through. Okay. I think that's pretty much it for all the unique things about the weapon. Now we're going to go over the builds here, and we have two different ones. We have the status primer and we have the status damage. I didn't think the status damage build was going to do that well, and I was proven wrong in my testing because it did amazingly well. It did about twice as good as the charge shot build from yesterday. So that was very interesting. So we'll go over the status primer first. And I'll have to kind of just explain what priming is, because a lot of people will know what priming is, and a lot of people won't know what priming is. So what is priming? Priming is putting a lot of unique statuses on enemies. It's not necessarily putting a lot of statuses, like, you know, you don't really care if you have 100 electric procs. I mean, obviously 100 electric procs is better than one, but you want a lot of unique statuses. You want an electric and a heat and a puncture and a viral and a radiation and all a bunch of unique statuses. Well, why do you want that? You want that because there are a lot of mods in the game that scale damage based on that. Let me go out of the Epitaph here real quick, and we'll just look at my melee weapon, the Nakana. So there's a mod that pretty much goes on like 99% of melee weapons called Condition Overload. And if we read this, it says plus 80% melee damage per status type affecting the target. So that's unique statuses. So if you have 5 unique statuses on the target, that's 5 times 80%. I'm not great at math, but that's a few hundred extra damage that you're going to be doing to that target. That's a lot. And even ranged weapons have effects that are like this. So let me go to my Baza here. I'm going to click on the Baza. And there's a mod called Galvanized Aptitude. If we read the bottom part, it's a little bit confusing. Galvanized Aptitude is a mod that confuses a lot of people. It confused me for a very long time too. So 40% direct damage per status type affecting the target for 20 seconds, and it stacks 2 times. So the 2 times, just think of it as 80% direct damage. So 80% direct damage per unique status type. So it's kind of like the same strength level as Condition Overload, basically. So 80% times however many unique statuses you have on the enemies. So, and that's why priming is very good, because the more unique statuses you can have, the more damage you're doing from mods like Galvanized Aptitude, or the other mod that we saw in the melee weapon, Condition Overload. Okay. Let's go back to the Epitaph and go back to the priming build. So a priming build is kind of a ZDPS build. ZDPS is 0 DPS. It's a build meant for utility. it's because you're priming enemies, you're putting statuses on them, and then you're intending to either melee or switch to your primary or secondary, whatever the other one you were using to not prime with, and actually do the damage. So priming builds don't necessarily do damage. They apply a lot of statuses. So that's going to be important. So when you look at a lot of these mods, you're like, well, where the hell is the damage coming from? Well, the damage is not really coming from anywhere. It's kind of a crappy damage build, but it's a really good priming build. So we'll look at barrel diffusion first. Is going to be 120% multi-shot. And we use barrel diffusion here instead of galvanized diffusion, which is normally the better mod. And it's because galvanized diffusion only starts at 110% multi-shot, and it requires kills for it to stack up further than that. Well, on a ZDPS build, it's unlikely you're going to get kills unless you're not playing Steel Path, or unless like the enemy is like, 1%, and then maybe you can kill them with it. But most of the time, it's unlikely that you're actually going to get a kill on your priming build. And so we could just bank on an extra 10% multi-shot with barrel diffusion instead of galvanized diffusion. Lethal Torrent is next for fire rate and multi-shot. Obviously, multi-shot is really good because the more projectiles you're shooting, each of those projectiles has a chance to produce statuses. So each projectile has a 100%, like as far as our build here, you see this 140%? So each projectile is always going to produce one status because it has a 100% chance to choose one of these statuses. And it has a 40% chance to choose a second one. So sometimes it'll be producing two statuses, each projectile. So with multi-shot, you're increasing the amount of projectiles. So if you look at our multi-shot here, it's 2.8. So we're going to always have two projectiles, and then we have an 80% chance every time we click that left click that sometimes it'll be a third projectile. And each of those projectiles can sometimes produce two statuses. Alrighty. So next we have Primed Fulmination. Primed Fulmination is going to increase the blast radius of your shots. So if we go down here, where is it? Range 14.4. So without Primed Fulmination, let me go all the way over here. If I take it off, it goes down to 10 meters. So Primed Fulmination gives us about 4.4 meters, which is a lot. And that's really good for a priming build. Okay. In the next slot here, we have Augur Seeker. Augur Seeker is going to give us plus 90% status duration, which means that the statuses you are applying are staying on the enemies for longer, which is very good for a priming build. I do want to mention, though, let me just type in duration here. Perpetual Agony and Augur Secrets. Okay. Or Seeker, sorry. So they're both 90%. This is 90% status duration. This is 90% status duration. Except Augur Seeker, you get a little bit extra here. You have a 40% energy spent on abilities is converted to shields. So Augur Seeker is usually just straight up better than Perpetual Agony. However, there are some like frames or playstyles in the game where the energy spent converted to shields actually kind of screws up like your invulns or your shield gates. And so you have to be a little bit aware of that. That's kind of like on a case-by-case basis per frame, how the ability works, yada, yada, yada. So just keep that in mind. Augur Seeker usually is a straight-up upgrade to Perpetual Agony, but you want to just make sure that that extra effect on the bottom isn't weirdly affecting your build. Okay. And now we're going to go for the elements, which is going to be the whole bottom row here. So I'm going to go with Viral first, which is Frostbite and Pistol Pestilence. That's going to be the 60-60 Cold and the 60-60 Toxic to make Viral. Viral is probably the best thing you can use on a priming build. However, Viral is a very good element. And because of that, a lot of your weapons and your melee weapons may actually have Viral on them already. Like you might actually be building your primary weapons out to have Viral. And in that case, you kind of want extra unique things, right? Like you don't want to be applying the same status with a priming build. And so whatever you have as your elements is a little bit dependent on what your actual damage source is using. If your damage source is already built out for Viral, you obviously do not want Viral on your build. And in that case, Magnetic is very good. So if you don't have Viral on your main damage source, you would obviously pick Viral. But if you do have viral on your main damage source, you would pick magnetic. Now, why is magnetic a really good priming element? It's because there is a magnetic. How it works is when it destroys shields or over shields, it also gives you a electric proc. So you actually kind of get 2 unique elements out of magnetic. Sometimes the dude has to have a shield or an over shield, and it has to break with it. So it's not always, but sometimes you get an extra effect out of magnetic. So viral is obviously the best because even a single stack of viral is 100% damage to health. But if you already have viral on your damage source, you choose magnetic because magnetic sometimes gives you 2 unique statuses. Alrighty. Enough of those 2 slots there. Let's go to the next one here. The next one is going to be Accelerated Isotope. This is a new mod, new-ish mod that was added like a few months ago. This actually just gives you a combined element in 1 mod slot, which normally you couldn't have done in the past. Like a year ago, you couldn't have done this. Well, I guess unless you had a Riven, but but Accelerated Isotope gives you a combined mod in 1 slot, so you get Radiation here, which is powerful because that means that we can have another mod or another element as well. So a single element. So you can choose whatever you want for a single element. I think Heat is pretty good as a single element because it also does like a little bit of armor stripping, like some like tiny amounts, but hey, you know, a little amount is still better than none. So I like Heat, but it's also going to be dependent on what you pick here. You know, like if you pick, I guess if you pick magnetic, you could still do magnetic Heat. So yeah, I think, you know, viral, radiation, Heat, really powerful if you don't have viral on your main damage source, or magnetic, radiation, Heat, if you do have viral on your main damage source. Alrighty. In the Exilus slot, there's not really anything that great. Lethal Momentum is okay. The Epitaph does have projectile speed. It does need to like shoot out. So more projectile speed helps it. It's up to you though. The unfortunate thing with the Epitaph is that it actually starts on the wrong polarity. It starts on a dash. And the only time you would use the dash polarity is if you're using the status damage build. You could use Prime Pistol Ammo Mutation, but you don't even need it on the status damage build. So, you know, you can either leave it completely blank and save a Forma, or not have to like reforma the Exilus slot, or you can try to overforma something so you can fit Lethal Momentum here. For the sake of the video, I'm actually going to do this without an Exilus because you don't really even need that. Like, Lethal Momentum isn't really even technically needed. You might actually like the little bit of drop that the projectile has. So it's kind of up to you. It's kind of up to personal taste there. All right. And in the Arcane slot, ooh, this is a fun one. Secondary Cucumber. Secondary Cucumber is amazing for priming builds, because if we read this here, on a status effect, we have a plus 24% chance to trigger a second random status effect. And that's random. That doesn't even have to be like one of the possible ones on the weapon. So like our current status build right here doesn't even have magnetic, but this could give us a chance to produce magnetic, you know, or toxic, or whatever, you know, any of the statuses that are in the game. Minus a few weird ones. I don't think that this can give you like microwave or any of the, like the weird statuses that you get on specific weapons. So Secondary Cucumber, really good for a priming build because, you know, we already have all these unique statuses we're producing. Well, this gives us the option to produce the statuses that we don't even have on the weapon. So really, really powerful. So that is the priming build for the Epitaph. Again, consider these 2 slots here, depending on what you're doing for your primary damage source, and switching those up. Okay. Now we're going to go over the status damage build. I did not think that this one was going to be even worth putting in the video, but it was doing quite well. So let's switch to it here. I actually have the wrong arcane on there. Hold on a second. Where was it? Where's Flare at? There it is. Okay. So the status damage build. I did a lot of testing with this between a few different elements because I wanted to see what performed better, you know, over the other. So I was testing viral and heat, and with that setup, I used Cascadia Flare. And then I was also testing gas and electric, and with that setup, I used Secondary Merciless, just because you obviously can't use Flare with that setup. In both setups, I used the primed heat with the 60-60 heat, and with the gas electric, I used the primed electric with the 60-60 electric. So, pretty much the exact same build otherwise, except for the arcane. One was Flare, one was Secondary Merciless. I'm going to come out of the build real quick, and I'm going to throw up my slide that I have of the damage results of them. All right, you ready, guys? Here we go. Okay, so this is the Epitaph Prime. These are the kill counts for 5-minute runs on Mott in the Void. Now, I actually put my kill numbers of yesterday's video for the charged shot for reference. And I just want you to know that the kill count for the charged shot was in 10 minutes. 482 kills in 10 minutes. So these are the numbers for the AOE shot, or the status damage build, in 5 minutes. So, yeah, they kind of pooped all over the charge shots. That was very interesting. I didn't think I was going to get that result, but especially with like the AOE built out for damage, but I did. Okay, so first we tested viral and heat. Well, let me back up a bit. So Void in Mott, let me do this little disclaimer here. Enemies there are vulnerable to viral damage, so you would expect viral to do a bit better than other elements. However, what we see here is that viral did way, way better than other elements. So if viral was only a few hundred kills over gas and electric, I could be like, they're kind of equal. But no, it was like double gas and electric. So viral and heat, quick shot AoE, using Cascadia Flare as a different arcane. I did 3 runs. It got 560, 616, 585 for a total in 3 runs of 1,761 kills. Then we tested gas and electric, quick shot AoE, using Secondary Merciless as an arcane. And it got 270, 367, and 327 in its 3 runs for a total of 964 kills. So way, way less than viral. Viral heat. The other thing about gas and electric, because they couldn't use Flare and they had to use Secondary Merciless, they ramp up very slowly, because Secondary Merciless actually needs kills for it to start stacking. And initially, when you first get into a mission where then you don't have conditionals up, you're not doing a lot of damage. And so it's really hurting the first 30 seconds of a mission until you start getting kills. And because of that, I actually did a single run with Secondary Shiver, because I wanted to see, well, maybe Secondary Shiver will be a better ramp up than Merciless was. And it was. It was a much better ramp up than Merciless was. However, it still scored poor damage numbers. It still scored 273. So I didn't bother to do 2 more runs with Secondary Shiver, just because it was scoring about the same as the other Secondary Merciless runs. So for this reason, viral and heat with Cascadia Flare, obviously the best choice. Again, you would expect that viral and heat would do a little bit better than gas and electric, but it did a lot better than gas and electric here. Okay, let me go back to gameplay here, and we'll go back into the build. Okay, so status damage build, using viral and heat. Yep. Okay, so we have Galvanized Diffusion for multi-shot, because in this case, this is a damage build, so we're going to use the galvanized version of this. Lethal Torrent for fire rate multi-shot. Prime Fulmination to increase our blast radius. Pistol Elementalist to increase our status damage. Now, on the viral and heat build, this really only affects the blast that is innate on the radial, and the heat, the gas and electric, this actually has more of an effect on. But it was still performing better as heat, viral heat. So, yeah, it's still worth. We're going to go with the 60-60 cold and the 60-60 toxic to make viral. We're going to go with the 60-60 heat and the primed heated charge to increase our heat weighting. And in the Exilus, you don't really need to do anything there. Again, if you want, you can use lethal momentum because it increases projectile speed, but you might actually like the drop on it. For the status damage build, there is a case to be made to use the pistol mutation mods. But on the heat setup, because it ramps up really quickly, you're actually killing like right off the bat really quickly. So honestly, on the heat setup, you don't even need prime pistol ammo mutation. But you could technically use this here if you wanted to, like, you know, form of something else to fit it. I'll actually do this video without using it. That way you can see for yourself and be like, oh, he didn't have any ammo issue, so I'm not going to need it. Or maybe if I do have an ammo issue, you're like, oh, okay, I'm obviously going to use it then. So you can kind of make that decision for yourself. In the arcane slot, we're going to be using Cascadia Flare. On a heat status effect, you get increased damage for 10 seconds, and it stacks up to 480%. So this gives you a larger flat damage increase than Secondary Merciless, where it's only 360, so this is 480, so another 120% flat damage. And it's easier to ramp up because this just needs status effects to ramp up. It doesn't need kills, it doesn't need headshots, it doesn't need anything weird like that. It just needs status effects, and this is a status build, super easy to do. Something else to mention about this status damage build is that faction mods, I'm not much of a faction mod person. I don't like to, I play with a lot of people, I play a lot of multiplayer, I switch game modes all the time. I don't want to be holding up the group I'm in by having to switch my builds every single mission that we do. But there is something, there is a lot of value in faction mods on dot heavy builds. So keep that in mind. Faction mods are very, very powerful on dot heavy builds. So if you really were trying to min-max, a faction damage mod would be amazing. And you would likely just put it over Lethal Torrent. That would be the best slot for a faction damage mod is over Lethal Torrent here. You could probably put it over Pistol Elementalist, but if you're using a faction damage mod, it means that you're intending to go like really later into the game, and Pistol Elementalist actually gets most of its value later in the game. Starting off, it doesn't have a lot of value, Pistol Elementalist, but later in the game, Pistol Elementalist is really powerful. So if you're intending to use a faction mod, you'd probably put it over Lethal Torrent. Alrighty, I think that is it for the status damage build here. So, yeah, I think that's everything. So what we'll do is we'll do a 10-minute MOT on Steel Path. I'm going to show off the status damage build. The status primer, I think I explained it pretty well. There's really no point in showing this off. It just produces a lot of statuses, and then you switch to your melee weapon or your primary weapon, and you know you bank on all those extra statuses. So we'll do the status damage build here. Because I don't mix this with any kind of externals, sorry, I forgot to say this. Because I don't mix this with any kind of externals, I do this on a big dumb Anaros with no Archon shards that increase weapon performance. No mods or arcanes on the Anaros that increase weapon performance. And with a pet with no sentinel weapon and no mods on the pet that increase weapon performance. That way you can see just how the weapon works by itself built out, and you could just make your own conclusions about adding external things. You could be like, hey, I'm using Nourish, which is going to give me viral, so then I could just use magnetic there. So, MOT, Steel Path, yeah, okay, cool.
These foes deserve your respect. Honor them with quick deaths, and
All right. The only button I'll be pressing during this run is going to be my 3 for armor and status immunity, because this does have a big AOE, so if you don't have a way to prevent stealth stagger, you could be throwing yourself around.
Life support has been cut off. They're trying to choke you.
Let's see where these guys are coming
Hold
from.
on. I'm sending auxiliary life support.
Now, obviously, this is not a very powerful weapon. Like, per shot, it's pretty lackluster compared to the charge shot mode. But it has such a large AOE that you're doing damage to, like, 20 dudes at a time. Where it's like the charge shot mode, that's what its crux was. Its crux was that it couldn't really kill large groups of enemies at once. It was really good at killing single dudes, like one-shot headshot them, but it wasn't good at multiple enemies. This is kind of a bad tile set to farm in, but we'll farm in here, it's okay. Look at the AoE on this thing. I can just shoot at the wall and it's hitting the things behind it. And you're going to see, I don't have a Exilus mod in, so I don't have the like pistol ammo mutation. And I'm just going to spam like this. I'm just going to spam like this, and you'll see I don't really have ammo issues. And that's why I'm saying for the heat build that ramps up very quickly with flare, there's almost no reason to even use the ammo mutation mods. You can if you want. I mean, obviously it's going to make it safer. That way you never, ever in your entire life run out of friggin' ammo with the Epitaph. But even without it, it's very unlikely you're going to run out of ammo. Now, at the end of the day, I think this is kind of a niche build. I don't think you should probably be playing endgame Steel Path with a status damage Epitaph. I think the Epitaph is probably best used as a primer. It's a very good primer, probably like one of the best primers in the entire game. So I think that build for the Epitaph is amazing. I think this build is good, but I think this is a little bit niche. It's fun, though. I mean, if you're a person that doesn't like to aim, if you don't like to aim, I've heard console's kind of crappy to aim with, so like maybe if you're on console and it's hard to aim, like you don't really need to aim with this build. Keep in mind, though, remember with the Epitaph, you do get impact procs on direct hits. So you can kind of add like another unique status if you directly hit a dude. But as you see here, I am a floor sniper, so I don't usually hit dudes directly. Yeah, if you don't like faction mods, you use Lethal Torrent, and if you like faction mods, take Lethal Torrent off and just plop your faction mod there. This will get a lot stronger with a faction mod. I mean, that's pretty much true to like for every weapon. Every weapon will get stronger with a faction mod. It's just some people aren't really into faction mods. They don't want to switch their builds up in between missions, which is it's understandable. I'm like that. Give myself some more status immunity here. It's getting low, or was it about midway? I'm like, I don't want to have to start self-staggering myself all over the place. And, you know, as far as the priming build goes, you can have different setups. You know, you have like 3 default loadouts. So like you could have one that is viral heat, and then you could have another one that's like magnetic toxic or something like that. And you'd be pretty much set. You know, you could just switch around whatever like, you know, you're doing. Oh, I'm using this weapon that has like viral on it, and so I'll just switch to the magnetic toxic one instead. Of course, not a great Acolyte killer, this guy here. In my videos, I only use the weapon I'm testing, so you would obviously like switch to a melee weapon and whack him with it and kill him, but I'm just using the Epitaph here, just to show how it works on everything. You know, Acolytes, Eximuses, trash. You know, obviously not a great Acolyte killer. It'll eventually kill him. I've seen worse weapons. All right, let's put it that way. I've seen worse weapons. So we're at 5 minutes here. We'll see what this guy gets to at 10 minutes. My 5-minute numbers that I was running this morning were like 500-ish. I think one of them was actually even 600. So we'll see what this one gets. I have kind of a bad tile set here, though. This is a big tile set with 2 floors. Although the AOE on this thing kind of helped me with that. And I could just shoot the the floor or the ceiling of the bottom level and hit everything up top. But you know, I am a little bit salty. I'm a little bit salty that the mode that kind of requires a little bit of skill, like headshotting and stuff, is doing worse than the mode that you shoot at the floor and hit everything around you. Like, that's one of my gripes with Warframe, is that it doesn't necessarily reward you for skill-based play. That's one of my little gripes. That's my little salt for today. Oh, there's some steel essence down there. I'll take that. I don't even know what's in Teshin's shop this week. All right, we're at 7 minutes. Getting close to the end here. I don't want to check the kill numbers until we're at the very end. I want to be surprised. I'm going to guess like 900. You know, even though our test numbers got like 500 to 600 in 5 minutes, like as the mission goes on and you're dealing with acolytes and more Xmas are coming out, I feel like your kill numbers go down a little bit. So I think in 10 minutes we might see 900. That's going to be my guess. That's going to be my guess. Just putting on some more status immunity. Mine was getting kind of low.
Behold the Tenno, come to scavenge and desecrate this sacred realm. Tenno use the keys, but they are mere trespassers. Only I, Thor,
That's true skill right there. Just shooting at the wall to hit everything behind it. That's a lot of skillful gameplay.
now I will stop them. Now I am changed, reborn through the energy of the youngest
I think they're all up on that balcony.
forever bound.
They love the balcony on this tile set. They always like hang out on it. I don't think this is going to do good damage to Vor. I think it'll do pretty bad damage to Vor. Where was he? There he is. Actually, the dots might do pretty decent to him. I don't know. I don't want to waste too much time shooting him. I don't want to mess up my kill numbers for this. He's not part of our tests. He's just a collateral. He's a collateral damage guy that comes out. If I can kill him while I'm doing my tests, that's fine. But I shouldn't focus on him. Almost at 10. Let me shoot the wall, get some of those guys behind there. Alright, we're at 10. We're at 10.
Hold out as long as
Let's
you
figure out where extraction is. We'll give a few seconds for the dots on dudes to kill some more, so maybe we can get a higher number. Let's see. 905. I was close. I was close there. I had a feeling. 905. Okay. Yeah, it usually slows down a little bit after 5, because that's when you start getting a little bit more Xmas out. You start dealing with acolytes. So, yeah, 905. I mean, you look at yesterday's score, though. What was it? What did I say? 582? Or was it 482? It might have even been 482 for the charge shot mode. Man, that's The AoE mode kind of beat it out, didn't it? It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that a skill-focused setup is worse than a floor sniper setup. So that is the builds for the AoE Epitaph. Check both of them out. They're both easy to build. I was able to build all 3 of these builds out, like using the same like sets. The status damage build does have a dash, and it does have a whatever this thing is, like a V or a D Vazarin one, but I just didn't put any formas into these two, and I put all the formas in the other ones, and I was able to pretty much fit everything. So, yeah, if you like the video, guys, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing, or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right.